The president getting high marks from the American public in the area of national security. But should he? Some Republican leaders think the president's leadership does not live up to that praise.
There's only one thing missing now: leadership. It takes leadership that you don't get from reading a poll. You see, Mr. President, real leaders don't follow polls. Real leaders change polls.
We have led when necessary with the armed might of freedom's defenders. And always we have led from the front, never from behind.
No one will lead, and there will be chaos, or someone will fill the vacuum who does not share our values. My fellow Americans, we do not have a choice. We cannot be reluctant to lead, and you cannot lead from behind.
Congressman Louis Gohmert represents Texas's 1st District. He says the president's policies are actually doing more damage to our country's credibility than voters know. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
What do you mean that the president's policies are doing damage?
Well, for one thing, we turn on our allies, like the Northern Alliance, that fought for us and with us in Afghanistan before this president added so many more troops. And the administration has thrown our allies under the bus, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's allies in Iraq. We keep turning on those who've been our friends and apologizing and trying to pay off those who've been killing us. And you guys have been talking about, are you better off now? And I did not realize this, Allison, until parents of one of our SEAL Team 6 members who was killed after this administration outed SEAL Team 6. Never supposed to do that. This administration did, put targets on their back. But those parents of Aaron Vaughn told me that, gee, 70% of those who have been killed in Afghanistan have died in about 3.5 years under Obama. That's under Bush, over 7 years, 625 Americans killed in Afghanistan, and then since Obama took over, 1474. Where do you hear that? 70%. And when it comes to the wounded, we've had 2,638 who were wounded under President Bush over 7 years in Afghanistan. 14,817 have been wounded under Obama. Where are people talking about that? 84% of the people wounded, 70% of those killed in Afghanistan of American troops have been under this president's lack of leadership.
Well, and yet, you know, the American public mostly believes that the Afghanistan war was President Bush's war, not President Obama's. Let me show you some poll numbers that I want to get you to respond to, because I think that these are interesting. These are Fox News polls. Which candidate is most to handle foreign policy? President Obama gets 51% over Mitt Romney's 38%. That is a significant lead.
It is, but he has the complicity of the mainstream media, and they don't even remind people that Obama actually called this in 2008, the Afghan war, the good war. What kind of guy calls a war a good war? And especially when he's gotten our troops killed and wounded by the thousands. He's not only leading from behind, he's pushing our troops out in front of them. And over, our troops from Marcus Luttrell on down have said it's this president's rules of engagement, not even being able to defend themselves when they're fired upon, not even being able to call in a gunship that can see those who are killing our SEALs, and they can't shoot at them because there may be a civilian in the area. Our troops need out, or they need to be allowed to do what it takes to win and come home.
Now, on the flip side, of course, the American public does give President Obama a lot of credit for issuing the kill order for bin Laden and for getting al-Awlaki. With one of the polls that we might show to you also asked from Fox News, who do you trust more on national security? And once again, the president gets a higher number, 48%, to Mitt Romney's 40%. Well,
like me, I didn't know that this president had more Americans killed under his watch, 70% of them in half the time of President Bush. I mean, the American public doesn't know this stuff. Thank God for Fox. where we can get this stuff out and the American public may see it. And unfortunately, that's why so much of the mainstream media keeps losing credibility. But this stuff's got to get out. George Washington once said, men used to restraint must be led, they will not be driven. And this president keeps trying to drive our troops out in front of him. That's not leadership. Well,
Congressman Louis Gohmert of Texas, thanks so much for coming in and sharing your perspective.
Thank you so much. Thanks very much.
The White House says it doesn't leak secrets.